We did 10 Things I Hate About You, which is incredible still. Also, the scene where she gets him out of detention is completely insane. We were like, children don't do this, where she just flashes her boobs at the teacher. Welcome to Not Right Now, the podcast about parenting through all of this. Hello. Quick note. We have two guests today. Crazy, I know. We figured out how to make that happen. They are Mark Graham and Meghan Keane Graham, who are parents. They're married, at least when we recorded, they were married, and they've got two kids. And they decided to make a podcast with them called Back in My Day, where they present movies to their children and try to defend them, and their children either pacify them or rip them apart on air. It is a delight. It's very sweet. I was hoping it's a bloodbath behind the scenes. Maybe not, which is great for them and says a lot about my parenting. But anyways, really a delight to have them, and so thankful they could join us. And as usual, Claire made me record this by myself, so you're welcome. Let's go talk to them.
I'm just coming in hot. I don't even have time to talk about everyone I'm mad about today. But on Fridays, this has been a long-standing tradition where the kids get Nutella. This is just Nutella Fridays. I thought that would be cute. And there's no school tomorrow. And my kids, as a treat, are going to get to spend the night at a DoubleTree in Skokie, Illinois for a friend's birthday party. So I came down this morning and I asked James what he wants for breakfast, which I already hate because he should have made his own breakfast. He's a little baby man. And if you let him suffer the consequences, it affects everyone. Because I don't know if your guys' kids get so hungry that they punish the world around them. And so anyway, I asked James what he wants for breakfast, and he said Nutella. And I said, well, it's Thursday, it's not Friday. And he said, but I'm not going to be here tomorrow. And I said, we're not negotiating. You don't get Nutella just because you're going to be spending the night at a hotel, a DoubleTree, famous for their cookies. And anyway, so that's just the tip of the iceberg, but that's just where I came in with. Are you guys mad at anyone this morning, or you guys are all emotionally balanced?
The same child. We have a lot of rules in our house that come from our 12-year-old around when we eat pizza and what happens if we don't have pizza on Fridays, and if an ice cream chance is missed. I think we've been hearing about that for the last 2 weeks because we offered to get him ice cream, and then it's the middle of winter and we haven't gone. So
the accounting really drives me crazy when they only remember like the one thing that you maybe promised and they don't deserve it whatsoever, but they're like, you said I could, or because my brother got it, that means I also get it, or I'm not enjoying the thing that I got because my brother also got it and he should always have less than me. Yeah. We have so many things to discuss, but like before we even get into your podcast, Quinn and I were talking about how cute it is and how nicely everyone gets along. And we want to like hear from you whether there's behind the scenes drama ever about people not participating nicely or, arguing, and you guys just edit that out.
I believe I texted Claire, I hope it's a bloodbath behind the scenes.
Well, there tends to be a meltdown after it finishes. But we started the podcast because Mark found out that we could get an hour of free recording time at our local studio because it's paid for by tax dollars. And we kind of film it through and then just publish it because we are cheap. But we almost ended the podcast before it started because the very first movie that Mark picked was a movie that Max had already seen and he hated it.
Oh, I love this. This is great.
Which
movie?
That pick was Hoosiers.
Oh, wait, I heard it. I'm very upset about the reactions to Hoosiers, but continue. I've got a lot to say.
It's for those who are unfamiliar, it's a 1986 movie starring Gene Hackman that's based on a true story about a real life high school basketball team from a small town in Indiana who miraculously wins the state championship. And our oldest, Max, who is 12, is absolutely not a sports guy. So starting the podcast off with a sports movie, one of my favorite genres, certainly, as Meghan mentioned earlier, did not go off on a good foot. But as always, Meghan is our de-escalation expert and is always good at handling those sorts of moments.
Although it's a real power move to start with a movie that not only was Max programmed to hate, but had already seen it. Like if he hadn't seen it yet, he could have withheld his opinions for a while, but previously walked out when it was shown to him.
Mark, did you do that on purpose to do that dad thing where you're like, I don't care about your feelings. I'm watching this movie and I'm going to force you to talk about it? Or what was your thinking behind that?
Well, the rationale for the decision came from the rubric or thesis of our entire project. So, our podcast is called Back in My Day. You can find it at backinmydaypod.com. And the thought basically went a little bit like this. So, both Megan and I are huge movie fans and have been all of our lives. Megan was a film critic in a past life. I currently run a website and entertainment brand that is all about watching stuff. It's called decider.com, watching movies, watching TV shows. And so as we learned that our town, thanks to our tax dollars, gives us an opportunity to get into a podcast studio, I started thinking about, well, what could a fun podcast be? And so because I'm an editor and I'd make these assignments all the time, I felt kind of comfortable assigning work to my family for this. And again, the thought of it is our son is 12. And what I thought would be a fun sort of overall shape for a podcast would be to go back to watch movies from when I was 12 years old and also from when Megan was 12 years old. And because I can be a little, let's say, overly detail oriented, I wanted to line up perfectly. So we did our first podcast in November of 2025. And the movie Hoosiers came out in November of 1986 when I was 12 years old. So that was the best movie that came out in November 1986. I thought my kids might actually enjoy and could spawn some good conversation.
Okay, now let's back up a little bit because I do want to hear. I've actually never seen Hoosiers, so I want to go into detail a little bit more about how it was received. But talk a little bit about how you guys got the kids on board with doing this podcast, because just sometimes, honestly, watching a whole movie like T to B, like with the with the kids is sort of an ordeal because everyone.
What does that mean?
Top to bottom.
Okay.
Everyone calls it that, T to B.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Top to bottom of the credits. Quinn's wife is a screenwriter, by the way, so he has no reason not to know what that famous movie phrase T to B.
Continue.
But just watching a movie with the kids, like a whole cloth, can be kind of a lot of focus and concentration. And are you guys taking notes? Are you discussing as you go? Are you saving conversation for the podcast? Talk a little bit about that behind the scenes about how you guys make that work.
We watch a lot of movies together, and Mark has already loved showing them old school movies that may or may not be appropriate for them to watch at the age they're at, or at the, 2026 that we're all at. And so we'd been watching them for a while. So they were already kind of in the habit of watching movies with us. And then it wasn't that hard to sell them on it. Mark originally wanted to do the podcast just with Max, and I sort of invited myself and Zach along so that it could be a family activity. Because the benefit to me is just that we get to spend a whole Saturday together filming it, and they are engaged, and then we go out to dinner, and there's usually a meltdown at that point. But it came together kind of organically from that, and we take notes. Zach is sort of the 9-year-old mascot of our show, and he's pretty the cuff. Max sometimes takes notes, sometimes takes it very seriously. Basically, if he likes the movie, then he has a lot to say about it.
Are they famous at school? Are their classmates impressed that they are on a podcast?
They were pretty impressed. I remember after our first one came out, a bunch of middle schoolers swarmed the car at pickup and asked if they could be on our podcast. And then I asked Max if they had watched it, and he said no. Just really excited about the idea of being on a podcast.
Yep. Checks every box for middle schoolers. Awesome.
Well, the podcast, is 30 minutes long. And one thing that we're trying to do with this is to try to keep our kids' attention spans from shrinking like everything else. Obviously our kids are addicted to YouTube, like I think every other kids in the world. But this is sort of a little bit of a respite from that where, movies are 90 minutes or 2 hours long, trying to get that in. But that's something that I think Megan and I have been relatively successful at doing, but I'm not sure some of our kids' friends' parents are sort of in that same mode or mindset.
Yeah. Have you guys, you guys haven't released that many episodes yet, but I'm curious how you choose the movies, but also whether you've had any, either for the podcast or just in general, where in your mind, you're like, this movie's a classic. And then you watch it with your kids and you're like, oh, this doesn't hold up as well as it did. Or I only remember this one scene and the rest of it was so tedious. Like the first time we tried showing Paul the original Superman, and he was way too young. I think he was like 4. We were like, Superman doesn't come on the screen for 45 minutes or something like that. There's like all this backstory. So talk a little bit about your choosing and how things have aged so far with them and with yourselves.
Well, I think conceptually, again, I'm trying to loosen myself and loosen my rules on this thing a little bit. But originally, I had a really hard and fast rule that this movie should come out, or the movies that Megan and I pick should be at exactly the same age that Max is right now. So again, as I mentioned before, we did our first episode in November of 2025. So when I was 12 in November of 1986, so I looked at all of the movie releases. We hit up Wikipedia to check out to see what was released that month. And I put together a list of movies for Megan to do the same. But as we're sort of learning as we go and trying to schedule episodes, we're starting to introduce some theme episodes. Like we did a Christmas movies one with Gremlins, which did not come out when I was 12, but I was watching it when I was 12, certainly. And Home Alone, which also didn't come out when Megan was 12, but again, sort of fits the vibe.
Yeah, I think I pretty quickly broke the rule because my first movie would have been like The Addams Family, which was fine, but didn't really mean that much to me when I was 12. And then also, Mark's family and my family had different ways of watching movies. So I didn't really go to the movies that often with my family. I would watch a movie on VHS like years after it came out. I'm really curious what happens when we get to the movies that I feel like had the most impact on me when I was younger, which I feel like I sort of came to consciousness of the teen experience when I was 12-ish, around that phase where movies just consistently had women having their tops blown off.
Sure.
So like the movies I remember the most were, Weird Science. Do you remember that Scott Baio movie, Zapped?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And then the movie I watched the most my entire childhood was probably Just One of the Guys, which
wow.
starred no one. But it was about this girl who pretends to be a guy so that she could be taken seriously as a journalist in a neighboring school. We owned the VHS, which is just a girl topless with holding 2 football helmets in front of her. What weird time we grew up in. I don't know
That's
how.
like Conan, like same level of problematic, yeah. Oh no, that's amazing. Wow, Megan, you really manifested like your life with living with only guys. Quinn, tell me a couple times that you watched movies with your kids that were like beloved to you, that they either absolutely got or they absolutely were like, what the fuck is this shit?
Just to set the tone, I mean, I take everything personally. So, and I go into family movie night with inappropriately high expectations. Not that the movie will hold up, because of course it will. It's frozen in time. But that they will have that it'll mean the same thing to them 30 seconds into the credits as it has built up for me over 30 years, basically, is essentially I want them to plug the Matrix in the back of their head and feel that way. So I'll do things like, oh my God, E.T. is showing on a big screen. I'm going to take you out of school. And we're going to go fucking see E.T. And we go and we leave. And I'm crying again. And he's like, yeah, it was good. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? What does it was good mean? Are you kidding me? And so we rinse and repeat for most of those. I'm generally not allowed now to pick most of the movies we watch because of things like that and reactions like that. But it's gone fine. So we did Ghostbusters recently. That was, it's a perfect movie. They were like, it's fucking weird. I was like, it is. It really is, which is why the sequels are so complicated. They really loved Goonies because it's so good. Obviously, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, before he gets eaten. What else? We haven't done original Ninja Turtles movie, which is perfect, by the way, which I'm excited to do and I forgot about because this guy's so high up on the shelf. I have a few other ones. I have Marty McFly's License over there. I've got Henry Jones Sr. and his briefcase that he uses to make the birds fly away.
Yeah.
There's lots of others. To be clear, the only reason I have his office is because I was told I was not allowed to keep these in the house anymore. So
Steve's mom sent us his old Star Wars figures, and they were like the very little ones, and she put them in a diorama. And there was something like a sick day or a polar vortex or something like that. And to be clear, these were not mint condition; these were played with. And I opened up the dioramas for Paul to play with, and I think she was mad that we like made them but I was like, you be here with this kid, and like now they are in the bath, whatever. But whatever.
That's
We're a
what they're
dime a
for.
dozen.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, being in the bath, like getting stuck in the drain. Anyway,
I don't know. As usual, I go into things hoping and expecting that they'll be perfect, and I'm completely let down when they're not. But we've had some pretty good experiences. We've
what
had
is
some.
everyone's Ninja Turtle that you most identify with, or is your favorite? Quickly, what's your who?
Well, I
who
took
are you?
Raphael down from the shelf because he also takes things personally and is too self-serious about it all. And they're like, "Give it a break, bud. Have some fun." So
Which one's the scientist? Donatello?
Yeah, purple.
Yeah, I think
That's
that one.
you. Yeah,
I think so.
Mark, how about you?
Donatello is also my particular favorite, mainly because Doc, our 9-year-old, when he was 4 or 5, I told him a joke and he repeated it for a year straight. And it goes like this. What is the name of the Ninja Turtle that farted? And the answer is Donna Smello.
Whoa.
So that one was a classic joke in our house. Mine's blown for years. And it's a little bit obviously of my sense of humor, but also my son's Zach's.
That's amazing. That's a good one. I feel like one of my character traits is that I always like the least popular member of any group. So I like Leonardo because he has that big sister energy. You know, like nobody
100%.
likes him.
What's the Taylor Swift song? Like Elder Sister, whatever the line is. That's Leonardo.
I have that same thing. I think I like Jonathan from New Kids on the Block just because he was like the one no one paid attention
That nobody
to.
wanted. Right.
Simon from the Chipmunks.
Our kids are 13, 12, and 11. And so, Megan, you phrased this kind of how we eventually learned to, which is we try not to say things that are inappropriate anymore for them. We say it's not appropriate for you for whatever. And then we just stopped caring. We took the kids on a Christmas trip and I went to bed early one night and my wife showed them European Vacation, which if you haven't watched in a long time, has a incredible number of boobs in it. And the B plot is around a sex tape. So I woke up in the morning to my children going, holy shit, guess what mom showed us last night? And that started the whole thing. So we're just easing our way into those kind of things.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting component to navigate, especially because I think my parenting style was to be really concerned about the choices I was making with my oldest child. And then to just decide that the younger one did everything at exactly the same time because I got tired of waiting. And so we show movies to our 9-year-old that we would not have shown to our 12-year-old at that age, probably. And he's a real fan of catchphrases and ridiculous things that happen in movies. And it's going to be interesting when we get to like the John Hughes of it all, like all of these things that are not would not be in movies made today. And generally, I take the tack of, well, let's talk about what's weird. And, you know, if they're exposed to it, we can at least explain things to them. With the 9-year-old, he's a lot less interested in the explanations and he's a lot more interested in, you know, the catchphrases from Zoolander.
Austin Powers.
Yeah, my
Austin
13
Powers.
Powers. Have you guys done the Austin Powers with them?
We just did that
Oh, yeah.
recently. Like,
Okay.
they did not. It was interesting rewatch. Like some parts of it were slower than I remembered. And also if the kids don't know who James Bond or who are the other, like the other references, like it's just a weird guy basically. And they didn't like I was kind of worried about the whole dick, you know, where he's got a sausage up the whole time. Like,
which part?
You guys know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's the one with Hurley holding a sausage on his forks.
Yep.
And
and the penis pump, or is that in Austin Powers too? That
Dr. Evil.
Penis pump is a running gag in all 3 movies.
Yeah, they like Dr. Evil way, and I forgot that I was like Dr. Evil's way funnier than Austin. Austin Powers is not really funny himself; like he's just got weird teeth, you know. But you know, they also did not live through like the Mike Myers era of anything he did was worthy of attention. But I don't know. Did your guys' kids like that?
Oh, is our 9-year-old's favorite thing to talk about? Favorite character of all movies? A lot of vagina? Yes.
Wow. He does like the catchphrases. That's amazing. My kids are kind of wimps, I have to say, like both of them. And so there's a couple movies we haven't shown them. I haven't even shown them Ghostbusters yet because I know Ghostbusters isn't like inherently a scary movie, but the opening scene with like the library ghost is scary. And I think Slimer can be scary. Yeah. And it's just not worth the sorting out yet with us, and Gozer, all that stuff is like kind of scary. And even Ghostbusters 2 with the goo, I'm like, that is very social media. Like, I know that's pre-social media, but I'm like, to me, goo is the social media where you touch it and you start like getting awful all of a sudden. So even though I have a lot of
That's
fond
deep.
memories of Ghostbusters, well, that's me. But a lot of the movies you guys mention, like when we showed the kids E.T., or I think Steve showed them, they were scared of E.T. And it made me remember that E.T. is very intense, like with the
Yeah, the
helicopters.
hospital scene and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, when he's all pale. Gremlins. Steve showed Paul Gremlins, and Paul loved it. And I remember being so scared of it, actually. And like falls in this place of like 80s funny horror. I thought Weird Science was scary too, actually. Like I think I was a wimp as well. I found Goonies scary. So I don't know. Like the kids inherited
Well, it's
like
really
my wimp.
interesting though, seeing how the practical effects age over time as well, because Zach is really good about tapping out when things feel scary. So he left Gremlins when it got scary, but then he heard that they got drunk and were smoking cigarettes, and he thought that was so cool that I think he may have like upped his, tolerance for scares. We took Max before we started this. There's a series in our town called Video Vault where they show monthly 80s movies at the local theater. And the first one we took Max to was The Lost Boys, and he hadn't seen anything scary before. So it's kind of our test
Ooh.
run. And at the end of it, we're like, what'd you think? He said, it was just ketchup and glitter.
The worms, the noodles
The
that become
vampires.
worms.
He wasn't
Worm.
scared of them. Yeah. The
Yeah.
maggots, the maggot
Yeah.
noodles. He was
Um,
fine.
Man, Lost Boys is such a weird movie.
It's a really interesting artifact of a time. And, one of my eventual goals with this podcast is, Claire, to address your point, to make my kids a little bit less of being fraidy cats. I think when I was growing up in the late 70s and mid 80s, sort of at the same time that their oldest is now, there was a lot less, I guess, or maybe more free range parenting, if you will. We just had a lot more time to kill when people were not around. So, whether it was flipping something on HBO or rewatching something from a VHS tape that we had picked up at the local video store, I feel like I got a lot of exposure into horror movies that were broadcast on TV first, like the creature feature kinds of movies around Halloween. You see edited versions on TV, and then as you got a little bit older, or you had friends with older brothers and sisters, you could graduate up that level. But our kids, like, Gremlins is certainly the scariest thing that they have ever seen at this point. They won't even watch Jaws. That's something that hopefully will be on our list at some point
We
here
just
in the
did that
future.
recently, but only with my oldest.
Oh, that
Yeah,
scarred
it's-
me for a decade.
Yeah, that's a winter time, not near the ocean for a while. Well, you might still be scared of a bathtub and pool. Like
I
remember
wrote a whole
pool shark.
column on it because he asked to watch it for the first time while we were sitting on the beach where we go every year when he was, I think, 11. And he was like, well, I've seen Jurassic Park and I've seen Star Wars and Stormtroopers and all that. And I was like, I know, but this is designed to evoke something else. And it's something that theoretically could happen to you. You're not going to get eaten by dinosaurs. You feel safe, even though it can feel scary. All these different things. I said, this is designed. I was like, also, it's about like capitalism and small town politics and all these different things. I was like, but it's gory and it's real. And he's like, I know, but I'm ready to watch it. I was like, all right, we put it off. But I thought this whole thing about like how it's important to eventually show your kids like quote unquote important movies, the difference between watching a bunch of stormtroopers get mowed down versus like the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, basically. I was like, those are not the same thing, but I know you feel like they're the same thing. They are not. It is to get you as close to that as possible. And we did Jaws and he really liked it, but we haven't been back to the beach since. And I was like, you'll never feel the same. So just be ready. And like you said, even in a pool, you're like, this is a closed facility. All the water is clear. I know intellectually there's not a shark here. And yet.
Yeah.
You'll never
I
feel
was
those.
scared of there being a pool in the deep end, a shark in the deep end of the pool for 10 years after watching it.
Yeah. In high school, the high school has a diving well with a observation like window underneath it. And my friend told me that's where they keep the sharks, behind that glass. None of that makes any sense, but like still you get that feeling. You never know. They might open the window and let the sharks out into the pool. Yeah, my kids were scared of, Karate Kid was one of our first experiences showing a kid a movie that I had very sentimental feelings that they reacted to in such a satisfying way. Like at the end, like when he wins, they both went, they both pumped their fists, and I had it made me feel so good. But they were very scared of the scene where Danny is overrun by the gang and they're all wearing skeleton costumes. And I think he left the room. And then Sister Act was on. And that was one of those movies that we owned the VHS of. So I watched it so many times that you kind of lose track of what actually happens. But I had forgotten that movie starts with a guy getting executed, like shot in the head. You don't see it happen, but you see a gun held to his head. And our kids ran out of the room and refused to come back in because they said we had tricked them into seeing a scary movie, but we had just completely forgotten all about that opening part, which is scary, but you just kind of like gloss over that kind of stuff as adults. And, I don't know if you guys have seen that other parts of that with your kids where you forgot something scary happened or you didn't see, you could kind of block something out of your memory like that.
Well, I think Max is the one that kind of brought it to our attention how awful things happen in every Disney movie. Someone gets killed.
Mom dies.
Parents are
every
missing.
movie.
The guardrails are certainly different now than they were back in our days. And so, again, I think that's part of why I'm interested in doing this with our kids. If you can experience something that's a little bit scary or maybe a little bit problematic, and like Meghan or I are sitting there, we can like foster that conversation with them. It helps to build up a little bit of, I don't know, maybe like emotional scar tissue or something like that, so that you're a little bit less afraid of other stuff or just exposed to things that, again, are different now than they were back then.
Yeah. I love, so you guys, your most recently released episode, you did Three Amigos, which I did not watch actually, because I feel like that's not geared towards girls. And I hate to say that, but like, when you're a certain age or certain movies that just aren't geared to you. And I do love Steve Martin, but I never watched that. Also, I have an aversion to Chevy Chase in general. And then, but you did Father of the Bride, which was very, yeah. And I was like, you guys saying that Father the Bride is like responsible for the wedding industrial complex. I was like, that is actually incredibly insightful. But tell me about how they responded to both those movies and compared to how you thought they would go. Because especially Father the Bride, you don't think of as a kid's movie per se, but talk a little bit about how you guys chose those and that experience with both of them.
Well, we're trying to stick to Mark's rule. And when he chose Three Amigos, I saw that Father the Bride was like in the scope of my range of rule. And I hadn't really thought about it, but like that 90s Steve Martin was my Steve Martin that I always associated with. I saw Parenthood, Father the Bride, and then LA Story was another one that I saw pretty young that I really loved. We just decided to do that. And it was so fascinating because it's almost like a pre-Nora Ephron movie in that she was involved with her husband on that one. And it's all gorgeous but very lived in. And then you get to this kind of intense Nora Ephron later on, just like above and beyond insane kitchens and homes and views.
Nancy Myers.
So, oh, sorry, Nancy Myers. Sorry.
No,
My bad.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to see that aspect of it. And the kids were so fascinated because in the movie, that gorgeous, perfect home that they live in is compared to this insane mansion in a different part of town that the in-laws have. And the boys think that the main family is super rich to live in a house that big.
Yeah.
It would, I guess maybe it was a more reasonable house then, but he was a super successful businessman also.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was cool that he was a sneaker designer. Remember that being like such a cool moment when she lifted her wedding gown and she had her gym shoes on underneath it because he was like I feel like he was supposed to be like a Nike exec, basically. That was a core memory of mine. That was a real, what a cool girl. Although literally girl, like the fact that she's 21 is
so young.
Well, I think that's one of the cool things about our show here too, though, is, Claire, you mentioned you weren't interested in watching Three Amigos. Definitely a very guy movie. The women in that movie have barely any lines and barely anything to do other than just be a plot device. But I think that's been the fun balance that I've experienced so far is that, I've been showing movies like Three Amigos, like all the Adam Sandler movies, to the boys since they were really little. And one cool thing about this is Meghan is bringing more of a feminine energy and this sort of experience. Like I would have never shown the kids Father of the Bride, although I love that movie and watched it 10,000 times in the 90s when it first came out. But I hadn't seen it since then. And it's interesting to see how they react to more like of the maybe like romantic comedy type genres, and exposing them into that, I think is cool and fun too.
So I have a daughter. We're boy, girl, boy. And my wife has written romantic comedies. Like I love romantic comedies, but it's interesting. Like my sort of initial list, as you're alluding to, wasn't as necessarily as feminine as much as we love those, but we've really started to lean into some great ones. So we did Clueless last week, which is fucking incredible still. We did 10 Things I Hate About You, which is incredible still. Also, the scene where she gets him out of detention is completely insane. We were like, children don't do this, where she just flashes her boobs at the teacher. 10 ways to get arrested. Princess Diaries is fucking great still. We haven't done any of the sequels to that. But yeah, I mean, there's just some incredible stuff that's still out there that, again, it's really interesting to see how they'll react, if not even appreciate it. You know, the love story parts of that besides the squeamish stuff. That was an interesting test for us. So my wife, among the other things she's done, she's pretty incredible. She co-wrote the 2 Wicked movies that just came out. And so much hard work. Just incredible.
Okay, now we can tell our kids we were on this podcast because Max is a Wicked super fan and
Well, I love it. Well, here's the thing. We, loved the first one. They loved the whole thing. It was great. Obviously, a little more appropriate for kids type of thing where if you knew what was going to happen in the second one, and eventually my wife ended up taking them to see the musical, so they'd be a little prepared for the second half, which is more complicated, right? It is the find out part of fuck around and find out of that story for sure. But there's the sexy scene. And there was always this question in the musical, it's even sexier. But we threw
sexier than a sex sweater?
Oh, yes. Sexier than the sex sweater. Nothing is better than listening to the fucking genius legend Paul Tazewell talk about how they designed the sex sweater and why it exists and how it makes her comfortable and safe. All this stuff. You're like, fuck yeah, Paul. Anyways, we threw this hometown premiere for my wife, which was super fun. It was like 300, 400 people. We got 2 theaters. We decorated the whole place, all this. And my 13-year-old kept going, could we just have a kids theater? And I was like, no, that's a pain in the ass. I'm not doing assigned seats, all those things. Until I eventually realized he was right, but not for why he thought he was right. I was like, oh, this benefits me because that scene's going to come on and I don't have to fucking deal with it. I can enjoy this movie with adults. And we told everybody, kids theater, adult theater. If you want to sit with the kids, your kids are little, I get it. Do whatever you want. The kids want to sit with you, that's fine, but they got to behave. This movie ended and these kids came out and I said, how did it go during that scene? And they were like, it was awful. Like children squealing and squirming and throwing things. And it was exactly as expected. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And it was so funny because a week later, my daughter came up to us with this list of other movies she wanted to watch. All classics. Again, some appropriate. Let's do it. Some not ready. And she goes, well, can I watch Dirty Dancing now? And we're like, oh, no, we can't do that yet. Fantastic, but,
That whole abortion
Mark and I
subplot.
are actually trying to decide on Dirty Dancing because the video vault series in our town is showing it.
It's incredible, but...
Well, I think certain things just go over their heads and then certain things
sure
are worth kind of pausing and talking about.
Totally.
So I think Zach won't get a lot of it. Max might.
Did you like it? I watched it kind of later in life and I never clicked with Patrick Swayze. And so I did not love it the way other people did, although I appreciate it. We had Chris on from What Went Wrong, which is a great podcast where they talk about like the behind scenes of movies. And they did an episode on Dirty Dancing, which is really interesting about the casting and like what an asshole Patrick Swayze was to Jennifer Grey up until the end of it. But yeah, I didn't have big love for it. Did you, Meghan, when you were younger? Really?
I loved it. And though since watching it as an adult, I definitely kind of associate with the dad now more. It's 10 years or so. It was like, that out of the blue to find out about this woman being pregnant, and he thinks it's like, but with the information he's given, he acts pretty rationally, although he's sort of like the villain, then sees the error of his ways later on. But he didn't have all the details.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I can't. That's a hard one to say for sure. I don't. Have you guys shown them anything that you realized that while you were watching it with them that they were like, you're like, this is above them, or we misjudged their interest level in something like this?
I feel like Meghan would say that I do that to them all the time. But, again, I think it's important to give them a little bit of exposure into this world. Again, I think we should put that on the list. Meghan, can we commit to that now in public?
Live?
I think you already did. It's on the list.
Done. Here's the thing, though, the point you're making. For again, better or worse, we were all exposed to this stuff with no rules. I think in one night on a sleepover, a buddy and I watched Alien, Bodyguard, and Beverly Hills Cop, and we were just like, they checks every box, and we were in third grade or fucking something. But that's what we got from the video.
We actually did have an awkward one with Wicked.
Oh yeah,
Oh, really?
Our oldest was such a super fan that my sister gifted him the book because
the
it was
book is very
on
different.
her shelf, and she gave it to him before reading it. And so one night we were going to grab pizza, and I ran out of the car to pick up pizza, and I came back in. He had been reading the book, and he said, Mom, I just want to let you know that Wicked the book isn't really for kids, but it's okay, and I'm almost done. You have to let me finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
this was one, by the way, this is one of those examples, and it's happened in the past where, they changed the cover of the paperback to be the movie cover. And this was controversial for all the folks who worked on the movie because they're like, hold on a minute. These are really different. And there's a lot of kids that are going to see that pink dress on there and think, great, I'll pick this up as my young adult reader. Yeah, it's a lot. But sorry, I was just going to say to your point. So my wife and I, besides just her involvement in movies and us growing up on them, all that stuff, and all the VHSs, we're real assholes about screen time, and our kids have kind of started to just give up, which is great. But we realized eventually we needed to offer alternatives. We can't just say no to everything. And so we've basically said, if it's a movie, great, I don't care. Because here's the thing. They're going to watch, like, they're very able to now go, oh, Eddie Murphy was incredible in Shrek and made the whole movie. Now I can watch him in Beverly Hills Cop or 48 Hours or Raw. And I'm like, well, we're not going to do Raw. But what is that compared to fucking whatever they're going to find on YouTube? Wouldn't I rather know, well, I know what they're going to get out of this 2 hours of there's a subtle abortion part, or 3 Men and a Baby, which the B plot is like murder and cocaine, basically. Who cares? They're going to find that in 30 seconds on whatever they find online,
Yeah.
I have found my
that's
daughter
true.
watching like Barbie 7, like struggling with her 4th child, just a YouTube AI shit. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. If it's able to be conceived, that shit's out there. So great. Watch Beverly Hills Cop.
Mark was an HBO household, pretty fancy. We did not have a lot.
Spoiled brat.
Yeah, right? Like, we didn't get those. I grew up on Rhonda Shear's Up All Night movies just because my parents went to bed. It was a free-for-all. And watching, like, comedy stand-up shows, you just go down your own rabbit holes. There were fewer things for us to watch then, but we were all kind of raised by TV. And now, thinking about what they can find online, a lot of these.
But it was a little
are
freeing to us when we thought about that. Oh, we're trying to keep them from something that they've probably already seen or have talked to or experienced in some way. We know what it is and what's going to happen. So why not?
Do you guys think, and I want to hear what you guys have lined up for them coming up, but I was listening to How Did This Get Made? Another movie podcast, and they
I love that.
I know, and they just watched Return to Oz, and I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, and it was so dark and scary, and it made me think about how, at least my age or my era of childhood, there's so many really dark kids movies, and I'm thinking of Neverending Story especially was so
Willow?
existential. Willow. What else? I mean, Labyrinth. I feel like it's like
Labyrinth for sure.
Labyrinth
my
is
God.
weird
Yeah.
as shit.
And I'm just like, why was that just a weird time of movies where we were expected to deal with these really heavy concepts, or are movies dark in a different way that I just am not seeing? I'm just like, was that just us, or was that is that still going on? Because I wouldn't show my kids a Neverending Story. There's too much between the horse dying and the nothing and the wolf. There was a lot of scary shit in that movie.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like Hollywood has changed.
It maybe has to do partially with the rating system and when that came into being, because there definitely, were G movies that were specifically for kids, but a lot of the movies that featured kids became kids movies, but they weren't necessarily made for kids the way
No.
they are now.
Yeah.
Shrek is made for kids and adults very purposely, like those types of movies. But I don't think it was that sophisticated then. We hadn't gone that far.
Yeah. And it's weird that like I feel like I was scared of certain movies. Like, I remember we got shown Nightmare at Elm Street like at a grade school sleepover, which was like way too scary for me. But then again, you're watching these other movies that are like, what if there's no life after death? You know, and what happens if like your childhood ends and you cross through, you know, or what if we give you electric shock therapy because your imagination is too wild? Like the things that we got served could be really intense on a lot of levels for sure.
Oh my gosh. That's such a formative memory. My sister at her 13th, she had a 13th birthday sleepover, and they watched Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. And I so wanted to hang out with the big kids, and they thought it would be really fun to cover my eyes because my mom told them to watch out for me. So they decided to cover my eyes during the normal parts and let me watch the scary parts. So I only saw the violet.
Oh, Meghan.
My brother and his friends showed me
Still can't
Cape
watch
Fear
horror
when I was
movies.
8.
Oh God.
That didn't go
What
well.
happened to Cape Fear? I've never even seen it. It can't be good. It sounds scary based on
The
the
quote
name.
unquote new one, the De Niro one, it's not fucking great. The scene that stuck out to me the most, and I've rewatched it since, is when he's dressed as the maid in the kitchen in Garot's. It's not great. It's not great.
And he puts his finger into Juliette Lewis's mouth in a very sexual manner that I definitely did not understand when I saw that movie in the movie theater with my parents, because they had seen the original Cape Fear and they're like, oh, this is going to be a cool, weird, fun movie. And it was definitely more sexual than they were expecting. Yeah. But that one goes to some very icky places for sure.
I don't know how it shows up to kids nowadays, but I think some of that practical effect stuff like can be scarier than any kind of CGI. Like I'm thinking of Large Marge in Pee-wee. And that was like a personality test for my kids where I was like, this is a canonically scary thing coming up. And I was like, you might want to leave the room. And Paul stood there and took it, you know, whereas James listened to us. But I think about The Fly when she gives birth to that maggot and it's still seared in my head. And that kind of stuff really messes with you like in a bed. Oh, and Thriller. I haven't even showed the kids a Thriller video, even though that was like one of the coolest things to ever happen to us as a culture, but they can't. We're wimpy people in my family. I'm just realizing, like Quinn asked me recently, like what would happen if we were on Apollo 13. And I'm like, we would all just like probably voluntarily kill ourselves rather than try to get through that. But tell me what you guys have coming up down the pipe. I'm just curious to hear like what you guys are going to be watching with them that you have on the slate so far.
Oh, for sure. Well, this month on Saturday, we're filming our next episode. We're doing Olympics themed. And so my pick is The Cutting Edge, which we just watched the other night.
Toe picked.
Zach has been walking around saying toe pick since then. And Mark's doing Better Off Dead. So that's going to be a fun one.
Not exactly Olympic theme, but again, also, a super silly 80s comedy, a great performance from John Cusack, but a lot of adult references in that one for sure. I mean, the whole movie is about John Cusack's character wanting to commit suicide because he gets dumped by his girlfriend. And all the different... He attempts to do it, but then something goes wrong and he can't commit suicide. That's the premise of the entire movie. And I know, again, when I was that age, it flew over my head a lot. It didn't fly over Max's head when he first saw it. We actually went to a drive-in movie theater a couple of years ago to see a Cusack attack double feature.
Great place.
Which one?
The Mahoning Drive-In. It's in Pennsylvania. It was maybe about a 2.5, 3 hour drive for us, but we have a friend who does the programming at that drive-in. So they had a John Cusack double feature with Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer. So our kids have seen this one prior, but again, with Winter Olympic themed stuff, there's a big skiing plot in that movie. If you guys don't remember that,
snorting the snow.
Winter sports.
Yeah.
Like, do you know the street value of this mountain? So yeah, I think they definitely don't understand that reference. And I know I didn't either, but I picked it up later. And that's been part of the fun for us, I think, in this one too, is watching these movies that maybe we watched once or twice or maybe a bunch of times when we were younger, but watching them through new eyes and a new lens as parents. And it's just as older people around the world who get more references. I don't know, that's been super enriching and super fun for me.
Yeah, Better Off Dead is such a deeply weird movie. Like, it has that fever. Isn't there like an animated hamburger scene to the Van Halen song? And I remember that lady
Everybody
going,
wants some.
yeah, Friends, Friends, right? And this regarding Cutting Edge, Moira Kelly was like the most beautiful woman in the world to me. I don't know where she's been, but I just was like, what a gorgeous human being. Like, bookending that movie Chaplin that Steve recently rewatched and was like, was not great. But I like that you guys are not doing like the usual movies, like the typical Cusack films. Like, I was thinking about one of my favorites is The Sure Thing. And that's, again, I feel like a really problematic movie I don't know if I would show my kids that, like, the whole premise is that you're going to meet this woman who is guaranteed to fuck you sight unseen. That's wild to me. It's a movie premise. Like, for like,
I feel like we
even
should really figure out some sort of trigger warning for the movies that we pick, because we have a lot of like family friends who listen to the podcast with their kids of all ages, and they might not have the same philosophy on showing movies to them. So
yeah. I don't know about you, but regarding not including the rubric for your podcast, it makes me feel really good when I show the boys a movie that I meant a lot to me as a girl that they responded to. So like when they saw Clueless and loved it, that was extremely satisfying to me, especially the thing that blew my mind about Clueless is that it was like such a joke that these kids all walk around with cell phones at the time. Like, you were like, can you imagine like only in LA? And now you're like, that is normal. That's not weird to them. They don't see that as a joke. But they responded really well to Legally Blonde, which Paul was like kind of on the fence about at first, but I saw that he really did like it at the end. And I'm trying to remember if I showed them Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion or not. But it's another one that aged way better than I thought it would age. Like, that was, but what have you shown them that you like? Again, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm like, I'm a girl. I know you guys all forget about me. I know you're all Star Wars and this is all your guys' house. And I'm just the lady who shows up sometime. But sometimes I'm like, we're going to watch Steel Magnolias, at least the first half of it, because you need to know, and do you make them watch things like that?
Well, it's funny. So I grew up, I'm one of 3 girls, so there's only one guy in my household. And having 2 boys, I always wanted to have a daughter, but I kind of also want to raise nice boys. So one of the things I've always tried to do is raise them as if they're girls in a lot of ways, in that my mom spent so much time like teaching us how to cook and how to prepare for being a wife and all these things. And then there's so many men in the world that have no life skills because they just never got taught them. So in both like the things that I show them and what I want them to be able to do in life, I just think about what you need to do in life to be able to handle the world. And so we also are lucky because we have one really sporty kid and one theater kid. So it sort of opens up the aperture of their interests a little bit. And I just kind of show them things that I like, and sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't. So yeah, we've seen a lot of things. We saw Clueless with them, and that was definitely a big hit. We haven't seen Legally Blonde with them, have we?
So good.
No, we haven't watched that one yet. But one of the cool learnings also that we found out through this podcast is certainly we want to show them things that we think they'll like, but it's actually more interesting for the podcast that there is a little bit of conflict, like our Hoosiers episode when Max hated it. I don't know. I think that was our best episode so far because we had such diverging opinions, and I was like trying to win him over about why this is great and why it meant a lot to me. And it was just really boring and slow. And why was that old man yelling at the high school kids all the time? So it's kind of fun when they actually don't like it, even though that's definitely not my goal. I don't want to show them something I think they're going to hate, but it is fun if they don't have the same tastes.
I think that's an issue with culture, and I feel it myself right now, like where I haven't seen many of the Oscar movies because I'm like, well, those sound really heavy or dark or complicated or long, and I don't have that I don't want to partake in that right now. Just like the way my headspace. And I'm like, but if this is back when we were kids, it was like only 4 movies. You saw those movies, and you didn't like, that's what you saw. Weren't like, well, Sinners, I don't want to see a vampire movie or whatever like it was. And so the idea of sitting through something and thinking about it is probably something that's kind of lost a little bit, like on us as well as kids, for sure.
I remember seeing Remains of the Day when I was 13, just because that was what was playing at our one movie picture house. And it was the first and only movie I've ever been kicked out of because it was a bunch of 13-year-old girls who could not like pay attention to that at all. I was like, that was not what we thought. but that's just, you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Yeah. My mom showed me and a friend at a sleepover Gone with the Wind. Somehow she made it, like she convinced us to sit there and watch that, and yeah, I know. And my parents will do that, or they would do that with the boys, have them over and show them like Chariots of Fire or something like that. And I kind of was like, well, good. You know what? Good. Make them watch this. You're the grandparents, you're the old people, force them to do this. Just like to kind of touch base a little bit about culture and how it's changed. Mark and I, the reason why, Mark, do you remember how we first got to know each other, or like our original sort of like how we became aware of each other? Because that is sort of an interesting, well, it's interesting to me, like where we kind of originally got to, like where we came to know each other in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah, we were both bloggers, Claire, and got to know each other in the early aughts. Thanks to blogs, I was a big fan and still am of all the stuff you were doing over at Zolke. And I ran this site called whatcanido..org, and we met ourselves that way.
Yeah. I mean, and it was funny because my son he looked at my website. I forget why I showed it to him, but he was looking at it and he's like, you used to write every day a week for like, and I was like, yeah, for free for years. And he's like, that's cool. And I was like, well, I guess I didn't do it. I didn't get paid for it, but I always wonder whether the internet was more fun back then, or whether we just think that because we were younger. And I don't know, like Meghan, if you knew Mark when he was blogging in those days, like Quinn, what your internet presence was like back in the early aughts. But I don't know, does the world seem harder now because we're all older, or has it all just gotten like more deeply darker and complicated, and that's a fact?
Yes.
Well, it's funny. So Mark and I met after Whatever was no longer running, but I had my own little blog called Swamp City when I lived in DC. And it's so funny because I was just talking this with Emily Sundberg, who runs a really popular newsletter right now. And people who are the youth now are also doing, expressing themselves online, but they're getting paid for it. Like none of us got paid for all of that work like that we did, which is wild. But I remember when I met you, Claire, you lived in Chicago, but we ran into you on a street in Cobble Hill. And I had just read An Off Year. And Mark was like, oh yeah, I know Claire Zolke. And you're this like author. I was like, oh wow. And then little did I know that you would become like the creator of one of my like biggest online networks later on in life as a parent with Evil Witches.
Well, it's a weird time of life because I think a lot about, I mean, you guys, we all have kids about the same age, and we're going to talk to Emily Gould next week. So it's hard not to think about, wow, like things are so full of promise, and we were cranking out like ideas and had time to invest in these ambitions. And I always struggle with, are we giving up, or am I giving up? Am I losing it? Because my kids require this, their school requires this, my parents require this, or is this, don't worry about it, just fall asleep. And it was good while it lasted. I don't know how you guys are in terms of comparing yourself now to where we were pre-kids and what we were doing creatively. That's a big meatball, but yeah.
I texted my best friend yesterday. I think I'm going to use whatever is left of my ambition this year and see how long it lasts, and then ... That's it. And he literally called. He was like, are you okay? I was like, why does that text seem out of the blue to you? That's the better question.
Well, that, getting into the whole creative question of it all, that was part of the reason that I wanted to kick this project off in the first place. I've been in corporate media for 20 years and some change at this point. And, Claire, back when we met in the early aughts, online first and then eventually in real life, that was just a really great outlet for me to get a lot of stuff out there that wasn't, I was working a marketing job at the time and I started a blog, and it allowed me to scooch into this cool, fun career. But, I like my job and I like what I do, but it doesn't scratch that itch in the same way because it is so, again, I work for a giant, huge multinational corporation, and there's so much focus on numbers and revenue and audience growth and all of the stuff that comes with it. This project, the back in my day that, Meghan and I started with our kids, is we, of course, would like to build an audience for this thing, but it's definitely not a goal. We're not monetizing our podcast. We're not looking to, do tons of promotion for it. It's a fun thing for us to do together as a family. And the organization and structure of it is just a real, I don't know, I found it really an important part of our last couple of months. And I'm looking forward to continuing to do it for a really long time again, because it just scratches an itch that I don't get from my 9 to 5, which is actually more like a 9 to.
Yeah. You're not looking to win a Golden Globe for best podcast? New category.
Maybe next year. Well, no, who knows?
I think a lot about, we were talking about John Hughes, and I don't even know when or where I would start with the kids, or even if I would even try to show them John Hughes movies, because like it's hard to imagine one that would like.
But Home Alone is the way.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Home Alone.
It checks like every John Hughes box. It opens up the whole thing.
I guess I think of him as the teenage movies. Like my personal favorite was 16 Candles, which is, you know, aged like milk in a lot of ways. And
we have that one on our list, so we'll see.
I mean, I loved it, but also, yeah, there's so many parts of it that did not, you know, don't hold up. And then Breakfast Club, same thing. I always think about Ali Sheedy going, "When you grow up, your heart dies." And Judd Nelson says, "Who cares?" And I feel like both of them. I feel like her.
Those are
and
the two
Malcolm
wolves stuck inside me right now.
Actually, I feel like the principal more than, no, I feel like the janitor more than anyone else, like telling the principal, "Get over yourself. You know, you think you're hot shit. These kids don't look at us or see us as any kind of human being whatsoever." And that's where I am right now, is like, anyway, sorry, not to get super fun and lighthearted and creative. One question, and then I will wrap up my millions of questions, but so Max is 12, right? So do you guys have any kind of issue with him being like a snarky tween who like doesn't take it seriously or tries to be too cool or write things off, or is he not in that realm yet? I'm just curious where you are with tween kind of stuff.
So he definitely has a lot more opinions, but I feel like the biggest difference in him the last 2 years has just been like the way you can visibly see hormones just like wreaking havoc on his brain. Like sometimes he just is desperate to pick a fight and will just say the most insane things. And depending on when he catches one of us, we'll take the bait and get into it. But whenever I can see it coming on, I'm so happy, because if you just completely ignore it, he'll sometimes have a fight with himself completely. Like the less you engage, the crazier he gets when he's like, you could just see the struggle of, you know, it's almost like Inside Out or Big Mouth. You could see the hormone monster taking over. I remember last spring, I sent him out into the streets with going to school on his bike, like openly sobbing because I like gave him a water bottle but didn't put it in his backpack. It's just like, I'm not taking the bait on this one. Like, you can just lose your mind on your.
Have you guys done Big Mouth with him?
No.
Okay, I was going to say, because I know when it first started, there were so many people who were like, it turns out this might be the best way to actually talk to my kids about sex, is like sitting next to them watching Big Mouth. I don't know how much that aged, because obviously that was like 10 years ago, but I was like, I don't know. And then I watched one episode again. I was like, Jesus, like
I have a very visceral reaction to that show. There's something about the way that the characters' lips are drawn that really turns me off, and I literally can't watch it. So I remember when it came out, I would just listen to it like it was a podcast and not actually watch it. I don't know, the lips, gross lips. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Nick Kroll was in my class at Georgetown, and I have a weird reaction where if someone is exactly my age and really successful, sometimes I can't like engage with it directly. You know, I'll do publicity, but I can't do Big Mouth, for instance. But Meghan, talk just a tiny bit about your de-escalation tactics besides letting them fight amongst themselves. Mark was saying that when there's a post-pod meltdown that you can bring things down. And maybe you have to de-escalate Mark. I know Mark always seems very even-keeled to me, but boys can make their dads a little bit crazy sometimes, I've observed in my experience.
Mark just like forgets how parenting works and picks fights with the boys, deciding to tell them what to do. And then I have to figure out a way to make it more interesting. I think Hoosiers was a great example of this. He got really excited about doing a podcast, and then he declared that Hoosiers was the movie and just decided we were watching it one night, and it just blew up from there. And I think I finally got Max to watch it by letting him know he could tell the world how much he hated the movie and he didn't have to love it. And sometimes it just requires waiting a while because there's like this battle happening. It also happened last week when Mark decided the boys should take ice skating lesson. And he texted me, like, Mark is also like super busy. And so during the day, we interact through like Google Calendar and sometimes emails. And he sent an email asking if the boys should take ice skating lessons. I said, sure, but let's ask them if they want to take ice skating lessons before you buy it. And he came home that night. And I think there's just like a lot happening in his brain. And then he just likes to cross things off his list. So we got home kind of late because one of our kids had a show. And then as he was putting them to bed, he said, oh, guys, you're going to do ice skating lessons. And when Max objected, he said, pretty much them. So not only
It's incredible.
Right at bedtime. Perfect. Sweet
Fucking
dream.
incredible.
No input.
so there was like tears and screaming, and he came downstairs and he's like, are you going to fix
God,
Wow.
I do that once a day. I feel like.
Yeah.
Just Claire and I always
So-
talk. Claire and I always talk about drive-by parenting, which is your
Mhm.
kids are just for once like minding their own business, and you just walk in and throw a fucking grenade, and it could be anything. It could be telling them that like their cereal is ultra processed and is going to kill them while they're trying to enjoy their Raisin Bran, or anything. But yeah, 100%. The before bedtime, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Just fuck the whole
That's
thing
a
up.
good one. Yeah.
I read something when Max was pretty young because he's always been obsessed with screens and he really struggles. Like he's a worse person after being on screens. And
Yeah.
I read somewhere that context switching is really hard for kids and you can't just pull away the thing that they're doing and expect them to join the world again. And
Yeah.
so I definitely try and give them notice when things are happening and let them know when it's going to happen and ease them into things. Mark
Mhm.
takes a different approach. So with the ice skating, I just waited a day
Yeah.
and I was like, do we tell them we lied about buying these tickets or do we somehow mind trick them into doing it? And the mind tricking eventually happened. So
I empathize on both fronts because and Quinn and I talk a lot about how it can be really hard not to expect your kids to care about and adhere to your to-do list. Like I'll have on my notebook, like they have to finish their school project, but they get home from school and they don't necessarily want, for some reason, to dive right back into my to-do list so that I can stop sweating about it. So yeah, it's hard out there. Anyway, you guys, the podcast is so sweet. And I love, you guys are great parents that you have this thing that you want to do with them and they're doing it and you are engaging them with it. I don't know, Quinn, other questions or things to say that we didn't cover? I feel like
No, I
dominated.
was hoping there was more drama, but I could tell from Hoosiers that it was starting off problematic, which is great. There's nothing better than, and it seems like we're similar, just like coming at something with best intentions, but also a poison pill from the very fucking beginning, whether it's ice skating or the podcast. Like oh man, all the time. I feel like the thing that my wife says most to me is basically just like, why did you do that? I don't understand why you would just fucking why would
I
you
get
do
that.
that? And I'm like, I don't know. I genuinely,
like we could do things the easy way or the hard way. And sometimes men just like it
Nope.
the hard way.
No, just the hard way.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
so last thing I wanted to share, and you guys said you showed this to your kids. So this is one of my favorite things. Can you read this? It
No, what is
says,
it?
No.
You ain't cool unless you pee your pants. It's Billy Madison. Okay?
Amazing.
It's like
If peeing
one of
your
the-
pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
Miles Davis. And his pants are peed, and the action figure, his pants are peed. But here's the thing. It came up. I can't remember when I got this, 2020. And, I was like, great, check the box, put it in the office, deliver it to the office. Obviously, it doesn't go home first. And then the more I looked at it, like I've got a little guy with just raging like anxiety issues and some depression and stuff like that. And this is like the best parenting moment ever. Is he was just basically, I'm going to take the hit for this kid and I'm going to turn it around and just be like, yeah, no, this is the thing to do. And you show them that it's fine. And you tell all the other kids like, yeah, fuck off. You think I'm the coolest guy. I also pee my pants. And they're like, fuck, man, everybody pees their pants. And then all the kids in the movie start peeing their pants. It's amazing. So that's my thank you to Billy Madison.
Yeah, it does sort of raise our kids, considering I think you've shown them every single one of his movies.
That's great. We haven't done them yet, so now I have permission to dive in, which I look forward to getting in trouble for.
Wedding Singer aged really
Oh.
well, and that was fun to read. It's really, I think that might be my favorite Adam Sandler movie, possibly. And Drew Barry, or that's my favorite Drew Barrymore. It's really sweet. It's a good one, and yeah, recommend that one.
Julia Gulia.
Julia Gulia.
Well, I love the podcast. I hope you guys get, all of the ads and all of the awards for it. And, but so like kind of mad at you for showing us up for doing something with your kids regularly. That's fun and not just something that you have to do.
All I could think about, all I ever tell Claire is how, and I was telling you, Mark, before we got on, like how cathartic this is for me, because it's one, it's not my other show with like fucking scientists and senators, but two, like my fucking kids aren't here. It's so nice to have a goddamn conversation, like without. It's so helpful. So I'm like, it's so great that you guys are doing that, but also absolutely not. Am I going to invite my kids to come? No, I need a safe place. Church and state. Yeah, church and state. So
thank you guys for coming on the podcast. It was so fun to talk to you, and we hope you guys are having a good time with it. It's a great show, and I love that you guys are hanging out with us kids. I think hopefully it'll tell other parents, prompt them to watch movies like that with their kids and have the same conversation. Like this 100%. Is making me think we can do that more with ours. So.
And movies can raise you. They can be fucking great. And just because the internet's available doesn't mean you can't show them awesome shit that makes them want to watch more stuff. There's some really great stuff. Is some of it still problematic? Sure, but whatever.
Well, thank you, Quinn. Thank you, Claire, for having us on. I'm going to get one more plug in. Just again, if you guys want to check it out, you can find it at backindmydaypod.com. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on all those places. But again, we really appreciate you guys inviting us on. Claire, it's always great to see you again. We've known each other I've known you longer than I've known my wife, so it's great to see you. And again, thanks so much. We're honored by this.
Head to notrightnow.show for more, or send us feedback, questions, horror stories, doxing, whatever it is, at questions@notrightnow.show.